Welcome back to Holistically Well. Today I am joined by Adele Johnston, also known as the Menopause Coach. And ladies, she is coming to us all the way from Scotland. So this is the power of social media, of being able to podcast and be able to do this interview from literally across the world. So we are so excited to have Adele with us today. She is passionate about helping women move through perimenopause and menopause, feeling strong, empowered, and supported with practical tools for their body and mind. And I am currently pregnant, with my fourth child. I'm going through that fertile time of my life still, but I know that this is looming. I know that it's down the road. And if you have been listening along to Holistically Well, you know that I love proactive healthcare. And this means being knowledgeable about what is down the road before we're there, right? So that we can support our bodies optimally ahead of time. Now, if you are already in the thick of noticing perimenopause or menopause signs, this will of course be very relevant for you. But I just wanted to highlight that it is never too early to learn more about our bodies and the seasons of women's health. And with that in mind, I want you to know that we are here to normalize menopause. It is a season of womanhood. It is not a disease. And so Adele is here to help educate, empower, and remove that stigma around this transition. So thank you, Adele, for being here.
Thank you for having me. It's super exciting. And I always love talking about anything women's health, but particularly menopause empowerment. So thank you.
Yes. Can you share a bit about your story and how you became the menopause coach?
Yes. Well, it's a bit of I think it's one of these ones where you'll hear a lot of people say it was obviously part of my purpose path, the way that everything kind of happened. So I started to recognize that I wasn't really feeling myself. I couldn't quite put words to it or specific symptoms. It was just I don't feel great when I was 33. Now I put it down to
I'm 33 right now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Your hormones are doing a whole other thing right now, being
Yes.
pregnant. But I had twins. Well, I still have twins, but I had young twins at that point, twin girls. And my whole thought on it was work's busy, life's crazy. I'm just not sleeping great because of the kids. So it clearly is just that. At 35, I was already working in the female health space. It was a passion of mine, although I had a corporate job. It was one of those things you hear a lot. It was that, evenings and weekends, I was in my passion with women's health. So I recognized that what I was experiencing was, in fact, hormonal. So I knew at 35 that it was a hormonal change. I didn't really know at that time that it could have been early menopause, but went through different checks, went through all the blood tests, the internal scans, external scans, biopsies, you name it. I literally had the whole health works on what we could have even done for checking that everything was well. Now, I give a massive amount of gratitude for the fact that those tests all came back normal, healthy. Yeah, you're like, great, but it doesn't explain why I'm still feeling like this. So by 37, I finally, after 20 months of really deep investigation works through our NHS system here in the UK and also private investments that I made in my health, had it confirmed that I had, in fact, early menopause at 37. So I started HRT, or menopause hormone therapy, as we call it now, when I was 37. I'm now 42. And my journey kind of led me down this pathway of when I first found out and had it confirmed, doctor phoned me. I was waiting in the school car park to pick up the girls from school, and the doctor's number came up on the dash. I was like, okay, this is either going to be good news or not really any further forward. So I answered it. My hopes were high. And she said to me, being a female doctor, I'm really sorry, I don't know enough about menopause to help you any further, but I can prescribe you some standard hormone replacement therapy if you would like that. And I just burst into tears because at that point I realized that I was very, very grateful and blessed that I had 99.9% more support and knowledge than what maybe the standard woman would have being in the women's health space. And I knew exactly what I needed. But I was sad because I thought, if this is a female doctor saying that she doesn't know anything about menopause, then what the heck is going to happen for women that don't have any support or knowledge? And that was the catalyst. That was the moment in my journey where I thought, right, I'm in early menopause. I can either sit and dwell. I'd nearly lost my marriage by this point. I walked out of my career. So I was in a very high paying senior corporate role and I walked out within a week and everything was just crumbling at that point. And I just knew that I needed change. So I became the change that I needed. I became the coach that I wanted to hire that didn't exist. And now I am educating others in that space to do this. And I'm supporting women all around the world with their own hormone health and menopause care. So I really do feel like it was a passion, a purpose calling, rather than something terrible that happened. It wasn't nice, but something that I've been able to really support others with at the same time.
Yeah, and I think sometimes God puts those challenges in our path that we have to work through ourselves so that then
Yeah.
we can be that helpful guiding light for others as they move through those transitions too. So your doctor, recommended hormone replacement therapy, but really didn't know much in the space that she admitted to. So what did you do? What kind of treatment approach did you follow, if any?
Yeah, so a really good question. I'm a nutritionist trained to trade and already realized at that point if my hormones were declining and changing the way they do through menopause and it was confirmed, I knew a couple of things. One, I was at higher risk of bone degeneration, so osteopenia, osteoporosis. So one of the first things that I did was request a DEXA scan to check my bone density. Unfortunately, I do have osteopenia in my spine. So I've probably gone a number of years without having adequate levels of estradiol, progesterone, testosterone levels. So one of the first things to do then for me was understand where my levels were sitting because I was under the age of 45. I wanted to just double check, where are my hormone profile levels currently sitting? Let's check other things like thyroid. Let's make sure that, everything's otherwise healthy. So nutrition was a huge big pillar. Lifestyle was another before we even went down the road of pharmaceutical support.
Yeah.
And then when I started my hormone therapy, I already had the Mirena coil for my contraception. So that almost acted as, although it's not body identical, it's a synthetic form of progesterone, otherwise known as a progestogen or a progestin. So I had the Mirena coil already. And I thought, okay, that's that part taken care of realistically.
Okay.
So we brought in estrogen, topical estrogen in the form of a gel. And I just apply that to my thighs, 1 pump each leg in the morning.
Okay.
And just seeing how I got on with that. But it was through the process of checking all of my own blood levels that I recognized that my testosterone levels were really, really low, to the point that my private menopause doctor had phoned me and said, I don't even know how you're functioning with levels that low. So we also brought in some testosterone replacement therapy as well.
Okay. Now, how long were you on the hormone replacement therapy, or are you still on
Still, yeah,
the
still,
topical
still there.
usage? Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
And personal choice for me was around understanding the risks. So the risks of being so young when hormones took a decline, much earlier than they should have, really. And the exposed risk within that is being that we do have some genetic heart disease and disorders within the family and the bloodlines. I wasn't willing to muck about with cardiovascular health, as well as brain degenerative diseases in the family as well, like Alzheimer's, dementia. So again, looking at the kind of risk versus reward within it all, I wasn't functioning. My marriage was failing. I'd already walked out of my career. I was being a really horrible mum, shouting, short-tempered, no energy. So for me, it was very much a, let's trial this. Let's do a trial of treatment and let's see how things feel. And looking back at it now, I even ask myself, how did I function? If that's how I felt, how did I get out of bed? How did I hold down a career and run a household and look after the kids and myself? Something was bound to break at some point. So yeah, it's been a journey and a journey I'm still on, but
Yeah.
hormonal wise, choice to bring in the pharmaceutical hormone replacement therapy for me, based on the knowledge that I have and the risks that I would have been then more exposed to if I hadn't.
Yeah, and can you highlight those risks? So, particularly for those with early menopause and then just in menopause in general, like what are the risks of those hormones dropping so
Yeah.
low?
Yeah. And again, I always say this with, we always hold a bit of internal bias. All right. No human being can ever be without some form of conscious or subconscious level bias. And for me, I always make the disclaimer that I do replace my hormones with hormone therapy through choice, through knowledge, through choice and empowered action. And the point that I raise that now is because I appreciate, and I work with so many women that do not, and they look at complete pharmaceutical avoidance all through holistic care. Yeah. And it's not that one way is right or the other way is wrong. So just to bring that in before we even start on this.
Totally. Yeah.
But the risks that we are aware of. So again, this is through very much controlled trials, studies, medical research papers. We appreciate that as women navigate through the stage before menopause, known as perimenopause, this is the stage where you're starting to maybe experience a few changes for your body. And that might be in your menstrual cycle and your period length. It might be in how heavy or light your periods each month have become. Or maybe you've skipped one or two altogether and that's not normal for you. These can be the first signs. For other women, we can experience other symptoms like vaginal related changes. So again, lubrication, pain, when urinating, when we're wiping, it feels very aggressive. It's like we're using sandpaper down there. It's not nice. So there's lots of different changes that can happen. But one of the biggest things in the terms of, and I'm very gentle with the word risk because it can invoke a lot of fear.
Sure.
Is that we appreciate from brain all the way down to ovaries, all the organs in the body, we as women thrive on a form of estrogen called estradiol. And as estradiol starts to decline through our menopause transition into postmenopause, we're left with less than 1% of that hormone by the time we reach postmenopausal stage. Yes, it's pretty much not there anymore when we hit into the postmenopause stage of life. And we remain there until the day we transition back to that energetic source. So it's really important to know that estradiol in itself is responsible for the health of hundreds of functions in the female body, from the way our brain operates, the hypothalamus at the core part, the front of the brain, where this is stimulating a lot of our thermal regulation. So again, flushing, flashing, sweating, all of these things can start happening as a result of the lowering estradiol. And the way that I explain this when I teach inside our academy is if you think about the body in itself, both internally and externally, because skin is our biggest organ, there are receptors within all of these parts, these cells and these organs in our body. And if we're old enough to remember the Pac-Man, little grabber, little mouth that opens up and goes around. I like to think of it like this. It's like the receptors are there and you've got this beautiful hormone estradiol that is floating around the body and the receptors are just eating that up like a little Pac-Man and they're like, this is great. We've now got our estradiol. We can go and feed into the health of our heart, the health of our bones, the health of our skin cells, the health of our brain, our eyes, all of the parts of the body. But as we start to go through perimenopause and that hormone in itself starts to decline and drop and lower, the Pac-Man isn't getting to eat up the estrogen that it's needing. So there are parts of the body that will then start to display symptoms of that lack of estrogen. Yeah. And over time, eventually then, if the heart is not getting what it needs, if the brain is not getting all that it needs, if we found that parts of the body are not getting what it needs, then that can heighten the risk of things like cardiovascular disease. Again, in women, we actually alarmingly go from being better, so 50% better health than our male counterparts pre-menopause. So we are 50% or more safer for cardiovascular disease risk, to 50% more at risk than our male counterparts when we enter postmenopause. Yeah, things like osteoporosis, again, 1 in 2 women will develop it, not might, but will, postmenopausally. And again, the linkage to all of this comes right back to that super queen bee hormone, estradiol. So as that lowers, we just are a bit more exposed to some ongoing risks in our health.
Yeah. I appreciate you breaking that down because I think we hear these like terms of like, okay, women don't feel like themselves, or, you're concerned about what's ahead. Or, I mean, honestly, I think a lot of people don't understand estradiol's role in all of those systems and that those things could be an issue down the road until they're actually an issue, As a physical therapist, I often see, especially when I was in the sports medicine arena, we would see, even though it's sports medicine, we would see patients across the age spectrum, but I would see a lot of active women for osteoporosis and osteopenia, and
So bad.
they were wanting to be active still and do all of the things that they had been doing, like running. I mean, we saw super active individuals, marathoners, cyclists. They'd come in with like terrible bone health and like no idea why, but they had entered into menopause and nobody educated them on the fact that this could be of concern, right?
Of course.
So I really appreciate you bringing that into light.
Yeah, I mean, I have no denying that you will see that. And the sad fact in all of this is it's not so much that, so although I have osteopenia in my L1 to L4 of my spine, it doesn't necessarily mean that I will develop osteoporosis. And the hard fact in all of this is that I was actually a bodybuilder for years beforehand. So I lifted progressive overload weights, training 5 to 6 days a week when I was in competitions. And that was my sport for years. And I remember saying to my specialist, so if I hadn't been a bodybuilder, where would I be? Would I be being diagnosed with osteoporosis in my 30s? And they were like, without a doubt, yes.
Right.
So again, that resistance and that weight-bearing activity that I've then allowed my body to benefit from had actually prevented me from going into full-blown osteoporosis. But you will know yourself that once we are inside the osteoporosis space, we're not reversing that. Yeah, it's not that we can then do a lot of really simple things to be like, don't worry about it. That's completely 100% reversible. The risk that we then face with that is, especially living in Scotland where the weather can be really icy in the winter, you have a slight slip, trip or fall and you break a hip. You know that there is, I mean, fragility fractures are a thing in themselves, but if you break a hip or you fracture your hip, same thing, I suppose, there's approximately a 30% chance that that can be fatal down the line for women.
Yeah.
That's sad.
For sure. And sometimes within that year of life, there's an increased risk of mortality within that first year of life after a hip fracture.
Yeah.
And for those who aren't really sure, osteopenia is kind of like the warning signs of osteoporosis. So there's certain bone density levels that we're looking at on a DEXA scan, as she mentioned earlier, to see what category one falls in. And you're also at an increased risk of osteopenia if you had RED syndrome, which we've talked about on the podcast before, reduced energy deficiency syndrome, or relative energy deficiency syndrome, but that's looking at lack of menstrual cycle, right? So these women's health issues really bridge the gap between age groups, and that's something that I struggled with in high school, of not having a regular menstrual cycle, and my bone health wasn't great. And so I know that I'm already kind of at that predisposed risk going into menopause down the road. And so strength training is huge, as you mentioned, resistance training for increasing bone health.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, there's so much we can do. And I think this is the part where I am a positive psychology trained coach and just finished my master's in psychology. So I'm just waiting to graduate from there to be a full-blown psychologist within the space. But a lot of this is about the reframe. Although we have heightened risk, it's not inevitable. So I think that, where we're talking openly about the risks that are associated with menopause, there's also this beautiful opportunity that comes from this stage of life, regardless of what age we are at, right? And this is one of the big things that I've recognized with the work that I do with the women that I support and work with as well. But It's very much a yes, okay, we may have some physical and emotional symptoms that we want to get in check, that we want to make sure that you are just feeling better. You're sleeping better, you've got better energy. We're not, feeling. A lot of women can say that they just feel like their bones are heavy, they're clicky, they're sore. And it's about being able to then support women through, okay, what can we do through nutrition? What can we do through lifestyle interventions? What can we do holistically? Yeah.
So let's dive into that. What recommendations do you have from a nutrition perspective for those concerns?
Yeah. So specifically for, menopause as a whole, we talk about like the Mediterranean style diet and how we would consume. And what I love about that is if you've ever seen the pyramid of the Mediterranean lifestyle, before we even eat any food, the base of that pyramid is actually, and this is if you get the proper version, not the adapted versions, is actually about connection, community, and family. So before we've even eaten anything, it's about basic human needs. If you're familiar with like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, it's that whole part of feeling loved, warmth, safety, we're fed. Then food will come into it. And what we need to just be aware of is in our transition through being premenopausal into this perimenopause to postmenopause stage of our lives, which not all of us will navigate the stages. Yeah, if we have women who have had breast cancer, for example, they may be medically or pharmaceutically induced into their menopause. So they don't necessarily have the same journey. We may have women that have surgical interventions, hysterectomy, for example, where they enter into the operating theatre as a pre-menopausal woman, not even started perimenopause yet, and leave the operating theatre as a postmenopausal woman. So they don't have that in-between part. That is a whole different topic of conversation, but that's really difficult emotionally and physically as well. But when it comes to the food elements, if we look at this through a woman navigating her transition through the phases of menopause, the most important thing that we need to consider is that we are not looking at food as right, wrong, good, bad. There's no such thing as, and I'm an evidence-based nutritionist, there's no such thing as this whole thing of like clean food and dirty food. It's very much around, well, what does the body need? And your body communicates with you trillions of times a day if you allow yourself to listen. How do you feel when you have that food? How does your body respond when you have that food or beverage? And for many women, we can develop histamine sensitivities that we didn't have before. So itching. We might notice things like a flaky scalp. And we're like, where did this come from? But certain foods that are higher in histamine, like avocados, for example, can then bring some of these reactions in the foods that we eat. So your body will communicate with you what it enjoys and feels good on and what it doesn't. And it's about listening to that. I love a red wine, really love a full-bodied red, and it does not love me anymore. Because again, red wine is high in histamine.
Yes.
So it's being aware that I know if I want in the winter, the autumn winter, and I'm going out for dinner and I want to pick a nice red, I know my limit is 2 small glasses or 1 large. I go over that, I get headaches, I get itching, I get heart palpitations, and then that brings anxiety, and it's just this whole big snowball effect.
Yes.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, it's just being aware of the foods you eat and how you feel, and the foundations that every nutritionist will ever share with you around ensuring that we're getting really good, diverse plant-based foods in there. So roots, fruits, vegetables, protein, absolute queen. And you will know this from the work you do for reduction in things like sarcopenia, so muscle wastage. We want to make sure we stimulate the cells, and we are just one big walking cell. So protein feeds that, repairs that, helps us to stay mobile. And I constantly say the Adele at 42 is working out with her PT and doing her resistance training for the Adele at 52. Yeah. And the Adele at 52 will be doing what she does for the Adele at 62. because I want to be able to get on and off the toilet myself. I want to be able to get in and out of my bed myself. Mobility starts as early as we can possibly put that as a priority, because once we've started to lose it, that's already a big challenge.
Yes.
So we can use protein to support that journey. And then finally, fats, healthy fat sources. Okay, the foundations for hormone health is not a fat-free diet. Yeah, really 100% no. When I teach this inside the academy, we talk about it being 30 to 40% of total daily calories as healthy fat sources. Yeah, really nice healthy fat sources. So things like, for us in Scotland, salmon, yeah, it's like nice oily fish, olives, olive oils, bringing in really nice sources to your day where you possibly can. And knowing that actually we do not want to do fat-free, it disrupts the hormone profiles.
Yeah. And that's a beautiful education on the nutrition side of thing. One question that did bring to mind is, okay, we talk about supporting the hormone profile with fats, which I completely agree with. What do you say to the person who asks the question, all right, you're telling me to eat more fat, 30 to 40% of my diet is fat, but my body's not creating these hormones anymore. So why do I need the healthy fats to support my hormones?
Yeah. So when we think about this as a wider picture as well, then for brain and heart health as well. Yeah, if we think of the likes of healthy fat sources, we can supplement. So of course, if we don't want to eat, really oily fish foods, then we can supplement with a really nice source of like omega-3 with EPA and DHA contained in it. But the whole purpose of this is you have more than just your estradiol as hormones in your body. So as much as we are seeing a reduction in what we deem to be our sex hormones, yeah, we still have an abundance of other sources of not just that, but think of it like chemicals and neurotransmitters that rely upon us having healthy fat sources. And the reality of this is as human beings, if we did not consume fats and proteins, yeah, we must have those. We can live without carbohydrates. We wouldn't die from not having carbohydrates, but again, we'd be very miserable and we wouldn't have that much energy, right? The brain's main fuel source being that of glucose, glycogen, fueling from that source. But we realistically, to answer the question as kind of really black and white as possible, it's not just about estradiol, it's about the other hormones that we also have in the body.
Love that. Beautiful. Yes, we have more hormones than just our reproductive hormones or our sex hormones.
Yeah.
And those are the ones that get the most attention, especially as we shift, through those life seasons of womanhood. But yes, fat is so important for all of the other hormones in our body. So switching from nutrition, let's jump to lifestyle recommendations. What lifestyle recommendations do you have for the women entering menopause?
Keep it as simple as possible. Again, one of the biggest things that we see, I experienced this myself, so I know firsthand, is overwhelm. And when we get overwhelmed, we start to self-judge and criticize. And that's when the guilt and the shame creeps in. And we're just inside this really dark, negative energy space when that starts to happen. So if we keep it as simple as possible, I could give you a list of all the things you should do. And that word should carries shame if we don't do it. So instead of lists of things, here's everything you should do in midlife to be healthy, it's more around look at how you are choosing to live your life in this moment. What choices are you making? And are you happy that those choices help you feel healthy, help you feel happy? So these are things from, yes, sleep opportunity is important, but not every woman can just go to bed and get an extra hour's sleep. If we're facing things like vivid dreams or insomnia as a result of our menopause. But we can choose to give ourselves an hour of additional sleep opportunity. It doesn't mean the body will sleep, but it means that we may just then be more rested. So it's a choice. Some of the other things would be around movement. So we talked a bit already about resistance training, but one of the other things, and it's a non-negotiable when I support my ladies, is daily steps for health. And the steps for health was something that I coined about 5 years ago. And it's purely just about sometimes we just need to get outside in the fresh air. Yeah, you are waterproof. Your skin is waterproof. You're going to be fine if it's raining. Don't worry. Yeah, allow that to be like a real nice cleanse. Wash away all the things that you've been feeling and thinking, and take yourself even for 10 minutes to stimulate a little bit of a heart rate. We call it sweaty boobed in my team. Go and get your steps for health in and get sweaty boobed. That's when you know you've walked, you've not just strolled.
That is hilarious. And I love the sentiment to rain because especially in Scotland, I'm sure that's
Yeah,
something you're faced with often, but you're right. I mean, yes, you could get on a treadmill and walk, but fresh air, time in nature, like there's so many benefits to that too, even if it's raining.
completely, especially if it's raining, right? It's
Yeah.
a different environment altogether. It stimulates so much more. It's like a mindful meditation walk, and you're just not aware that you are being
Hmm.
completely cleansed on that walk. But also, and you mentioned this, so it's probably relevant to bring it up, but the stimulation that we bring our gut health when we go outside into nature, if you can, preferably, but if not, that's okay. But into the outside environment. Yeah, not only that, but we are then a bit more likely to bring a natural source of vitamin D to the skin as well.
I love that. Absolutely. So, what roles does stress and nervous system regulation play in symptom severity? Because, some women will move through this transition with, they notice changes, but it's not like a full stop impact on their lifestyle. But others, as you experienced, I mean, it can wreak havoc in relationships, in work, and all of that. So, what role does stress and nervous system regulation play in the severity of symptoms?
It's huge. So, this is probably one of the reasons why I went to study my master's in psychology and the human brain. I needed to understand a bit more why more than 80% of the coaching that I was giving and supporting women through was very much in the mind pillar, the psychology mind pillar. So we have three that we work through: nutrition, lifestyle, and mind. And within mind, I recognized that a lot of the time it was working through self-judgment, shame. There was a lot of appeasement. And if anyone is familiar with the polyvagal theory, the polyvagal chart, it's the red, amber, green of fight, flight, freeze. Yeah. And when we start to navigate through the stages and phases of this, we typically will never always sit within the green phase of feeling settled, safe all the time. But if we are constantly navigating stress, and stress comes in many forms, it's not just about I feel stressed in life. There's stress on cells, yeah, oxidative stress within the body. There's the way that the mind will navigate from past experience and remembering how that thing made us feel to future catastrophizing mind that the things never happened, but we're jumping ahead to think, well, this is going to be horrible. I'm going to be terrible at this, or it's not going to feel good. So that starts to become very elevated in menopause. Yeah, we talked a bit about how the little Pac-Men inside the brain are trying to be the estrogen receptors for estrogen. And as that starts to drop, the brain's ability to function as it once did is no longer there. Okay, and there are beautiful PET scans that are available if you even just type in Dr. Lisa Mosconi, just the way it sounds, brain scan. And you will see she has scanned a premenopausal woman's brain right through the processes to postmenopause. And we can see the changes in the brain activity, in the glucose energy consumption. And we literally can see brain fog on these scans. So again, sending so much love to the fact that the brain is in a bit of an SOS state. Yeah. And at that point, we will be a bit more forgetful. We will be a bit more emotionally dysregulated. And it's not that you have done anything wrong. You're not causing this. So there is a lot of heightened stress that can happen both by feeling stressed and recognizing the dysregulation in your ability to even be as organized as you once were. Yeah, we actually have a lot more women that are diagnosed with neurodivergency traits or ADHD, autism in menopause years. Because for women, young girls in particular, much more equipped at masking when estrogen levels are high. And when they start to drop, a lot more of these signs and awareness symptoms will start to come forward. And I got my own verbal diagnosis of hyperfocused ADHD 2 years ago.
That is very interesting. And, the mind piece is such an important component of it all. So how can women reframe menopause from this feared decline
Yeah.
into a season of empowerment?
Yeah, 100% it is. So I'm going to look at this through two ways. Number one, the science side. So actually what happens as we start to navigate through the phases, as we start to have a decline within these key hormones, progesterone, estrogen in particular, we have and I don't know if you remember back to even your grandparents' level and you think when you were younger, my gosh, either she's super scary or she's really strict or really direct in how she tells me to do things. There's a reason for that. We lose a little bit of our empathy the older we get, but as we navigate through menopause and the estrogen levels do drop, our ability to put up with other people's crap, our ability to just hold space for things that where we would tolerate things a little bit more previously, we just don't have the ability to do that anymore. So the joy in all of that is we actually start to step into owning the pathway. Yeah. And with that, we will start to then have stricter boundaries. We will maybe appease others less in our menopause years. It almost becomes this moment of awakening where a lot of women will start to say, wait a minute, I have just spent the last, 2 decades of my life or more doing things for other people. Now I need to take some time for myself and help my body. And it just brings this whole new level of self-connection, which leads to better happiness. You mentioned relationships. Yeah, this is a strong pillar within positive psychology and the PermaV model. But within relationships, they can either, unfortunately, start to become a bit more frayed as women start to realize who they really are and who they really want in their life. And sometimes that means that there are detachments in relationships and divorces. Other times it's a strengthening of those relationships. So it is a really empowered stage of life for women. But again, it comes round to if you choose yourself in that stage of life.
And I think it comes to a point of wisdom too. I think, to the point of not putting other people with other people's crap or things like that. Like you become very, I know who I am and I know what I stand for. I know what my values are. And from a relationship standpoint, evolving that with your spouse and letting them into the changes that you are going through, because I see that in different patients that I work with of my husband just doesn't understand, I'm a different person. I'm a different person to my kids. They don't know what mom I'm going to get each day when I wake up because their body's going through this transition. And so to your point of choosing yourself in the sense of you have to pour into yourself. You are going through a transition. Again, it's not a disease. It is a normal evolution within womanhood, but it is an important time to really tune into yourself and be like, okay, what does my body need? Because like you said, with histamines, you might have been able to eat tons of avocados before as a really good fat source, but now your body responds to those. So just starting to pay attention to, okay, how does food affect me? How does sleep affect me? How does my strengthening workouts versus running or a HIIT workout, how does that make me feel? And starting to choose more of what makes you feel good.
Absolutely.
And that can sound simple, but when you're going through it, you're in the thick of it where you're not looking at it from a big picture lens, right? And so I think today how you really broke it down is so helpful for women to just start to reflect and realize, okay, this is not just happening to me. I can be a beacon of guidance within my own journey versus just feeling like I have no control, you know?
Absolutely, 100%. Beautifully said. And it comes into the line of work. I don't know if you're familiar with Dr. Gabor Mate, who's done a lot of work with autoimmune conditions. And his work unearthed that more than 80% of the world's autoimmune conditions are in women. And there was the whole question around, well, how? Why? Why is it that women hold the majority of these conditions? Fibromyalgia and all the other conditions that we just don't know why they are a thing and how to really treat them properly. Rheumatoid arthritis and Crohn's disease and ulcerative colitis and all these conditions that we're like, well, where has this happened and come from? And what he has hypothesized in the work that he has done is that actually it comes down to that linkage to the polyvagal of not just fight, flight, freeze, but also appeasement. So as women, we are so deep in appeasement with others. We are yes to everyone else and no to ourselves, especially if we're parents or we're maybe caring in other forms. We are, of course, I can do that for you, even if it means that you're going to work late and you're going to miss your PT session. So we very much hold very unstructured boundaries to a point. And that is where I see menopause as being a really strong tool in your toolbox for revisit your vision, your values, your boundaries for life. And actually, when you do that, get very clear that it's not selfish when you communicate to your household, for the next 30 minutes, I'm not available. I am reading my book.
Yeah, boundaries are so important to set and to stick with for your own health, and then you can show up better for those who are in your life. So for women who feel blindsided by the onset of perimenopause, such as you did, you know, especially those with some early onset, if you could give one piece of advice to women in their mid-30s or early 40s to prepare, what would it be?
So the main thing really for women is become educated as much as you feel the desire to. Okay, nothing to fear. This is not about having or should. It's about what do you feel that you want to know about right now? Yeah. How can you maybe listen to some podcast episodes like this one, become a bit more knowledgeable around the phases of menopause and what is likely to happen during that time? It's not that we just stop having a period and then we kind of get on and everything's the same. There are some risks that come with it. So just, again, open up your curiosity, get a bit more knowledgeable around it, and recognize, secondly, are you experiencing any changes yourself or symptoms? One of the biggest things that I've found works really well, especially with women who are a bit unsure if it's perimenopause that they're experiencing or not, is, and I have a free link I can give you for this as well, but tracking your symptoms and understanding just in a very simple format, am I experiencing any of the following with a tick box? You literally will just tick to say whether you are or are not. It helps you to track the symptoms yourself so that you can keep an eye on whether they are maybe menstrual cycle related. And you're like, oh yeah, I can see a bit of a theme to this one. Or yeah, assessing that, I can see that each month this is how I feel. So it's more likely to be linked to my menstrual cycle. Or you may see that progressively over time, the symptoms start to worsen, in which case then we might be saying, yeah, there's definite changes within that.
Yeah. And to your point of preparing, like share this with your friends, share this episode with your friends, because everything that we have talked about these last 45 minutes are educating you, empowering you, giving you proactive tools to help understand your body as you make this transition. So share this with all the ladies in the similar season of life with you, because this is going to help give them practical tools too. All right. 2 more questions for you, Adele.
Amazing.
For women struggling with weight gain during this season, what do you wish they knew about metabolism and hormones?
Ooh, okay. Weight gain is a whole big episode.
I know we almost could do part 2 on that.
Yeah, absolutely. This is an area that I love, but I love it because of how compassionately we would guide on this. So with weight gain, it's not inevitable. I don't want anybody panicking and thinking, oh my gosh, this is going to be inevitable for me. predominantly when we look at it through, and I'm going to think about a really quick fire way of answering this for you. What we more likely find when weight gain arrives is that it will traditionally come into the tummy area. So we hold a lot more belly fat within our midlife and menopause phase. And it's the same for me, unfortunately. I'm a very lean woman up top, but I hold it all around predominantly my tummy space. And that, again, is a hormonal change. We have other forms of estrogen that are held in fat cells, so adipose tissue. And again, the body will retain that as much as it can because it's literally gone, wait a minute, we don't have estradiol anymore. So we are not letting go of these other forms of estrogen. Yeah. And it just becomes a little bit of a problem that we're in this battle with our body where we're going, but I don't want you. And it's going, but I'm not leaving you. Yeah. So we've got this whole big challenge happening. And this is where a lot of women can fall a bit short of, well, I'll just eat less. I'll just not have as much to eat. But what we're then doing is we're compromising other parts that we've already spoken about, where it's healthy fats, it's healthy proteins, it's bringing in good food sources to support the other parts of menopause, like muscle, bone health, heart health. So definitely make sure that you link in with someone that you can speak to if this is happening to you, so you can get the guidance. All right. Again, another point in all of this would be that as we naturally start aging and as we go through our menopause transition, we can start to lose muscle. And as we lose muscle metabolically, we change, and our energy fields and our, the way that we burn and how much energy we burn changes. So we can have a reduction in that, which again can lead to less muscle, more fat cells. Yeah, bigger fat cells.
Yeah.
And then finally, if we're not sleeping right, if we're having a lot of flushing and sweats at nighttime, if we're just not feeling energized and motivated in ourselves to go and be as active as we once were, we're probably moving a bit less, and we're maybe comfort eating a little bit more. And it's not that that is a bad thing. Yeah, it's part of a coping mechanism, but it's recognizing it and knowing what can we do to support the body at that time.
Absolutely. Now, what is one daily ritual or practice that has the biggest ripple effect on your client's energy and mood?
I am going to go with a positive psychology tool. Again, I always slip predominantly in this mind pillar, but one of the biggest is probably either between daily gratitudes / affirmation and breath works. And these are free. You don't need to pay to breathe. You do not need to pay to be grateful. And these are tools that, again, everyone has accessible, regardless of what we have to invest in our health monetary wise. And I think the reason I love these is because gratitude practice is one of the most underused, underrated, but one of the biggest, I would say, abundance tools that you can hold within yourself. And it can be as simple as when you waken up each day, you start your day before you grab your phone and you check your socials or you check your emails and you give yourself to others first. Yeah, reminder. Take a few seconds to even just, when your eyes open and you're lying in bed, waking up, to say, I am super grateful for another day. It's as simple as that. One of mine's when I wake up personally is, I will say, I'm super grateful I've woken for another day and I'm pain and ailment free. Because that, to me, health is one of my main values in life. I just really value my mobility. I've broken bones before. It isn't fun. Yeah. And mentally as well as physically, it isn't fun.
Right. Yeah, breath work is an absolute foundation to so many pillars of health. So I love that you mentioned that, because I'm talking about it all the time in terms of pelvic health, nervous system regulation, all of the things. So it's like, it feeds into so many buckets. Yes. Adele, this was amazing. You gave so many like practical tools that women can just start implementing right away, but also that they can have in mind for proactively supporting their bodies as they transition. Where can listeners connect with you and learn more about your resources?
Amazing. So I am predominantly most active on Instagram. It's where I sit in the DMs and have conversations with you all. So come find me there if you use Instagram at the.menopause coach. If you're unsure, then jump on Google. I don't even know if that's still the cool thing to say now because of AI and all these things, but jump on Google and just type in Adele, the Menopause Coach, and all the platforms I am on will come up, including my website. And if you love podcasts, then I have one. So I have the last 2 years, I think there's nearly 200 episodes that you could go listen to. They're all mini teaches, 20 minutes to half an hour on topics of menopause care and women's health. So you can go find that on any podcast platform, The Menopause Coach.
Amazing. And we will link those resources in the show notes below. So, in closing, I just want to remind each of you that you are not broken, and this season of life, this transition into perimenopause and menopause, can actually be one of the most empowering chapters when you're equipped with the right support. So just switching that mindset piece as we talked about and moving forward from there. So if today's episode spoke to you, if you learned something new, please leave a review for the Holistically Well podcast. I read every single one, and it helps me know what is speaking to you the most, what you want to learn more about. So drop a review on Holistically Well wherever you are listening. And Adele, thank you again for being with us today, all the way from Scotland. How cool.
I know, I love that. I love that we get to do this. It's super cool. Thank you for having me. And to the listener, thank you for having me in your ear for the last 40 minutes or so.
Amazing. We'll talk to you all again soon.